Tally and Farrell here from Board of It, and we're here to help you solve your problem.
We know you love board games, but there just isn't enough about wheat.
We present to you Polis, the game about creating the biggest baby boom by feeding your citizens ungodly amounts of wheat. Now, I almost didn't want to review this game because I know that at some point I'm going to mess up the distinction between Polis, which is one city, and Polis, which is multiple, and it's going to be really embarrassing for me. But we just had so much fun playing this game that we really wanted to talk about it.
Polis seems like it should be Peloponnesian War Simulator, the game. But in reality, it's actually how much wheat can you get, the game. If you just looked at the box and read the blurb, it would trick you because the reality is that it's actually a very tight resource management game based around growing your civilization and expanding how many polis are under your control. The players will play as either Sparta or Athens, with both aiming to become the most powerful ancient Greek civilization.
What's this?
Hello.
Hate those guys.
The board is split into territories, with each territory having a variable number of polis. You'll start asymmetrically, with each civilization controlling 3 polis. Each polis is represented by a card and it has population on them, with each cube representing a population.
On your turn, you'll do 2 actions, but you can't do the same action twice. Some of these actions include removing these population cubes from your cards to turn them into units, so they can become hoplites, galleys, or merchants. Other actions allow you to move these around the board, and you could also lay siege to a polis, and where you attack it and bring it to your league by force. Or you can be sneaky about it. You can send your proxenos to a polis, and you can bribe the population with silver to instigate civil war, and they also come over to your league. Now, importantly, when you control a polis, you can demand tribute, and this will allow you to take a pick of whatever resources they generate, and these resources will then allow you to further your expansion.
Now, the difficulty lies in that many of these actions require you to spend prestige. Prestige is your most valuable resource and is also your victory points. If you ever end a round without any prestige, you automatically lose. You don't just get given it either. You have to earn it by doing projects, which is essentially building temples and wonders. You can earn it by absorbing polis into your league, and you can also get it from doing well in battle.
The game will last for 3 rounds, and each round or era will end when both players have passed. Now, what you want to do is you want to end the game with a lot of polis cards with a lot of population cubes on them, because you'll get 1 prestige for each population cube you have at the end of the game. You'll also get a prestige for each polis that has more population cubes than it began with, or more than its base population. You'll also get some endgame prestige for certain projects, and finally, any prestige that you had left over will be added to your score.
However, at the end of each round, you have to pay as many wheat as you have cubes on these cards. And you can only grow your population if you have spare wheat, and wheat is very hard to get.
The first time you play Polis, you're going to find it very tough and very unforgiving. The game it actually reminds me of most is Barrage, in feel if not in gameplay. There are several traps that if you fall into them, you will lose the game and have a bad time of it. For example, in my first game, I turned the only cube that I could use to make a merchant into a soldier instead. Then, because I didn't have the second merchant, I could never get enough wheat. And then because I didn't have enough wheat, I couldn't increase my population to get more cubes, which then meant I couldn't ever create a second merchant, and you can see how that would have ended.
And that was the only game that I've won. Great game. That said, what we like is, as brutal as it sometimes feels, familiarity and learning the nuances really opens up the game. You'll be ending the round with more wheat, getting more prestige to allow you to do what you want, and be ending the game with significantly higher scores than you did on your first game. Familiarity and learning where the traps are is really going to open Polis up, and it becomes a rewarding experience.
Following on from Polis being tough, we'd like to say that the rulebook is pretty great and the actions themselves are fairly simple. If you're an experienced board gamer, you're going to pick this up in no time. And it's also surprisingly intuitive, which is a comment I had from a friend after teaching it for the first time. Even better, our scores in that game were only 2 apart, despite me having much more experience playing Polis. And that's always a good sign of intuitive design. Now, for what this is, the setup is lightning quick, which makes it easier to get to the table. And because the actions are simple, as we said, the turns go by quite quickly, even though it's a big, chunky, thinky game. So Polis clips along at a really nice pace, and it just never overstays its welcome.
So, trading. Trading is very important in Polis, so luckily it's a cool action to take. Once you've traded for the allotted value, you will roll this dice twice and move the cube up the track for that good by the lowest amount that you rolled. This means that if you can get in there first, you can trade for less, and you can even prevent your opponent from trading at all because you just price them out. On the other hand, you could roll 2 4s and then you just look at each other in horror. Trading is also really important for feeding your population. So if you want a more interactive game, this is going to be where the action is. Moving your galleys to control a new sea allows you access to their market. And taking the trade action that they have been saving up for ages is absolutely diabolical and could just win you the game. Less War of the Worlds, more War of the Wheat.
As you just mentioned war, we should speak about the battle system. Now, there's an entire deck of cards and a couple of pages in the rulebook dedicated to this, but in all the games we've played, we have never once had a combat. I find that really strange, but it's probably a plus for the game because I think after our third one, we were like, well, we've got to see what it's about. So we did a fake battle, and it was really tedious and confusing. And personally, we think that this is down to the design choice of having historically accurate terminology in really small font, and also the fact that a lot of the cards have very similar images.
But the reason it's a problem is because it kind of boils down to a matching game of luck based on what cards you draw and whether you're the attacker. The reason combat doesn't occur is because, firstly, it's super costly to move your troops around, so you're better off moving them and calling for tribute. Secondly, combat occurs when there's 8 troops in one region, so in the first round that's impossible, and in the second round also pretty unlikely. So yeah, that's the combat, don't expect it. All this being said, Polis is almost certainly a sandbox of a game in that you'll get out of it what you put in. We're pretty sure some people will play this and go, if I move my ships here, Sparta can't trade. Excellent. And that will start a whole thing. Whereas others will say, I'd rather spend my prestige on calling for tribute and trading with those goods. The bottom line is, different people will experience different aspects of Polis based on the type of game that they want to play. It's just that we find it strange that after playing so many games that we've never been forced to interact with some of the mechanisms.
One thing we worry a little about is if Polis will become stale after a fair few plays, particularly with the same person. Each civilization has very obvious opening moves, and in the first era it can really feel like you're just going through the motions at times. Now, there are event cards that are drawn before each era, which can shake things up and are supposed to, but all too often we've got cards that say no event or just have no meaningful impact on the board state. But in defense of Polis, the variable values of goods for trading at the marketplace and what projects come up when can push players in different directions. Now, while we're certainly not tired of Polis yet, we do worry that if you play with the same player over and over, and particularly if you're playing in a non-confrontational, more Euro-style way that this game allows, you'll become locked into the same predictable moves each game. But this isn't something you have to worry about if you're going to play with new players most of the time, or if you're just a more aggressive player, more confrontational, more antagonistic with each other, then it's probably okay.
The other thing is, whilst it is a really great game and it does feel different to anything else we have in our collection, mechanistically nothing is novel here. It's certainly not a must-have game, nor one that we would avidly recommend over other games. And whilst in the next section we'll say, hey, this is a really great proposition, bottom line is, not having it won't leave a Polis-sized hole in your collection. Get it if you have the spare money and it calls to you.
What first attracted me to this game were the components. I was reading a written review on Board Game Quest and I just saw some photos and I went, wow, this looks incredible, and it was an instant buy for me. And what we can say is that the components are so high quality. You've got the beautiful silk screens on the Merchants and Proximos, and everything looks great. Also, there's a really good storage solution, so it packs away really quickly. And if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know that we love divots and we think every game that needs it should have divots because it's a massive quality of life improvement. And not only do the player boards have divots, the main board has divots, and we absolutely love it, of course. But what I find really cool is that this tribute and trading kind of board, it could have been a separate board that just sat on the table somewhere, but they've incorporated it as part of the map. It folds up. And you even have divots for the markets on the map. And it just really makes the game pop and just look incredible. Now, I've seen this go for between 40 to 50 pounds. And I'd have to say at that price, if you're interested in this game, it's a good deal. Just because of the gameplay and the high production value.
The conclusion is that Polis is a solid recommendation from us. It's not a must-have game, but if it interests you, it'll be a really nice addition to your collection. What's really great is that Polis allows you to play like a Euro game with minimal interaction, or more like a war game with more aggression, so it will appeal to a wider range of players.
However, be warned, Polis is a tight, tough game where a simple mistake could take you out of it in the first round. But Polis has great table presence, wonderful components, interesting gameplay, and an engaging theme. Check it out. So thanks again for watching, and please check back in next week for further reviews, always with doggos. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and also just comment if you want to know anything about Polis or tell us about your Polis experiences. Bye bye.
Bye.